You want me to put that on my Tudor?
Harry's wife. Throw her down a well. Now, there may well be some of you who are cheering as a consequence of hearing the suggestion that Harry's wife ought to be thrown down a well. But where's all this coming from? Well, it's from Yahoo News. And Albertina Lloyd, a contributor, runs with the headline, Jeremy Kyle challenged on air for aggressive Harry's wife comment. Now, there'll be many of you who are thinking, who the dickens is Jeremy Kyle? Well, in a nutshell, think Jerry Springer, but younger. Jeremy Kyle had a television show. It was a tabloid talk show. And it started on the 4th of July 2005. And it ran for 17 series until its cancellation on the 10th of May 2019. Unfortunately, it was the most popular programme in ITV's daytime schedule, and it was broadcast on weekday mornings, reaching an audience of 1 million. Basically, the show was based on confrontations in which guests attempted to resolve personal problems, often related to family and romantic relationships, sex and addiction. It featured some psychotherapist called Graham Stanier, who assisted the guests during and after the show's broadcast, along with the use of lie detectors, despite the lack of scientific evidence supporting, of course, the use of the equipment. Basically, the show was controversial for placing guests in confrontational situations, with Kyle often chastising guests whom he felt had acted in a morally dubious or irresponsible way, and stressing the importance of traditional family values, with guests frequently displaying strong emotions such as anger and distress. Basically, it was human bear-baiting, and there were often violent altercations that had taken place. I know for a fact that there were 3,320 episodes of this god-awful show, which many people, I think, watched just to make themselves feel better, that they weren't some of the people that were on the show, that their lives were not like those of the people on the show. Essentially what they would do is they would advertise amongst the less fortunate in society and coax them with the prospect of free booze for a night and a bit of money. And then they would go and get tanked up, spend a night in the Premier Inn probably, and then the next day would be filmed as they would discuss the fact that their brother has shagged their sister and so forth. All rather unpleasant behaviours, and showing a strata of society that really ought to be taken out the back and shot. Kyle, of course, adopted the moral high ground and would invariably look to mediate, because of what he would much rather do would be lambast people and criticise them for their behaviours. Basically, it would involve uncertainty over the biological father of a baby, a family member committing theft, infidelity, drug addiction, and so forth. And what would happen is they would bring out DNA tests and polygraphs to claim that an individual had been lying or telling the truth, or, for instance, to reveal whether two people were actually biological relatives, even though they'd been getting it on together. Often, people would come on the stage, of course, and they'd hear what had been said, and strong language and fights would break out, and, of course, the fights wouldn't be shown, but basically Kyle would often act with considerable hostility and anger towards these guests. And in a way, he was little better than the people he had on his show, apart from the fact that he was making a lot of money out of them. It won't surprise you to know that Kyle is an odious individual and is a narcissist himself and has quite the history, but now is not the time to go into that. What is interesting, of course, that he'd been challenged on air after he suggested that Harry's wife should be thrown down a well. The 57-year-old talk show host, whose series The Jeremy Kyle Show was cancelled in May 2019, is currently co-presenting The Talk on Talk TV, and was discussing Prince Harry and his wife with royal commentators Kinsey Schofield and Emily Andrews. Andrews suggested that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex could make better use of their time doing charity work in South Africa than making public complaints about the way that they have been treated. She said, "If you really want to perform a service for charity, Go to Lesotho. It's safe there. Go and build wells, build a school and go and teach English. Kyle interrupted, throw her down one. Andrews responded, no, no, do not do that, Jeremy Kyle. Earlier in the discussion, Schofield suggested that Prince Harry and Markle had exposed themselves to criticism by giving so many interviews and public statements. She said people are done with the whinge fest. They are done with the crying. The way these people use victimhood as currency, I think culturally we are tired of it. It's going to end soon, so they better get out of it. Better get out of it what they can, as the American people are really getting tired of their complaining and crying. Kyle added he felt they were taking the mickey. The outspoken TV's presenter's comments come after he said Jeremy Clarkson deserved forgiveness for his own violent words about Harry's wife. Kyle said on his show, there's no doubt that Clarkson's column crossed the line. I'm not defending what Jeremy Clarkson wrote at all, I just don't see why one mistake has to mean automatic cancellation. The Clarkson's Farm star and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire host publicly apologised following the reaction to comments he made about the Duchess in his newspaper column. He wrote in the comment in The Sun, which has now been taken down, that he hates the Duchess of Sussex on a cellular level and lies in bed grinding his teeth, unable to sleep as he's consumed by thoughts of her. He also said he fantasised about Harry's wife being made to parade through the streets of Britain while crowds throw lumps of excrement at her. So Jeremy Kyle joining the Not Liking Harry's Wife club, of which its membership grows on a daily basis. It once again evidences the fact that another TV show host can't stand her, and, unsurprisingly, that when she comes up on his radar, he is moved to respond in the vitriolic way that he is. Of course, there are plenty of people who aren't narcissists that respond in a similar way because the way that she behaves offends them. But here, he is a narcissist himself. His need for control is threatened as a consequence of mentioning her. He finds her odious and therefore responds in the way that he does. I very much doubt that Harry's wife is aware that it's been suggested that she ought to be thrown down a well. Of course, if she finds out about it, I'm sure that she'll write a letter of complaint to the relevant people at Talk TV to try and get Jeremy Kyle cancelled, because that is her way, because she lacks a sense of humour and has no ability to take matters on the chin. Instead, it just contributes to her contributing victimhood, something which she trots out on a regular basis. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.